93 WIBC, WIBC.com. This weekend is the Great American Songbook Initiative, the wonderful institution started by Michael Feinstein out at Carmel at the Center for Performing Arts there. They are having their second Hall of Fame induction gala show. And among those being inducted, one of my favorite people in all of entertainment has been since, at least since I was about 5 or 6 years old. I'd have to strain to see exactly how old I was, and I'm going to share that with her in a moment as we get to talk to the wonderful, and she's going to be here for the show as well, the wonderful Ms. Rita Moreno. Ms. Moreno, it's a pleasure. How are you today?
I'm great, and I just love it that you pronounce my name properly. That really thrills me.
Well, I've watched you for long enough, so people mispronounce your name, really?
Oh, a lot. It happens to everybody. I remember that Jim Garner getting so annoyed because people would call him Jim Gardner.
Really?
And the person who gardens with the garden. Or Jim Gortner.
Well, I have to confess that the first time I saw you, it was not in West Side Story. It was not certainly on Broadway. A little kid growing up in the mountains of North Georgia. And this is one that I get to relive over and over again because we have the DVD and my girls love it, was the image of Rita Moreno beating up a giant Muppet in a bar in the opening scene of the Muppet Show. That was fabulous.
Right. I was doing a dance with a man puppet. There was a guy, really a man, inside the Muppet suit, if you want to call it that, and I just beat the living daylights out of it. It was so funny. It was done as a tango, a violent tango.
It was a great scene. It was a great show, and I remember.
The best one, by the way, from that show, the same show, was Fever, which has had something like zillions of hits on YouTube, where I sing Fever with Animal, the drummer.
And I would really love to hear you sing the song, because if anybody can do that song, it would be you. But you kept getting interrupted by Animal over and over again.
He just. It's so funny. I'm still laughing, and it's been, 100 years?
It seems like it. And like I said,
I still laugh at it. And as I said, it has an enormous amount of hits. It's very, very funny.
Whenever we drag out the DVD, and because we've got the entire season 1 of the Muppet Show on DVD, one of the first ones.
Oh, you really?
The one of the first ones that my girls are 10 and 5, and that's what they want to see. They want to see Rita Moreno, and it's so funny to watch them watch this 30-something-year-old show with all of these celebrities from when I was a kid growing up, and
he had fabulous guests, Jim Henson, and the thing is that he also he really wrote very well for them. The writers for that show wrote really well for the strengths of each guest star.
Certainly did. Now, of course, your career began long before the Muppet Show appearance, and if I may, as perfect a movie as Singin' in the Rain was, it could have done with a few more minutes of screen time for yourself than you actually had in the film.
I was still a young player at MGM, under contract to MGM, and that's what I got, and I'm just so thrilled that this movie has had such an enormously long life. It is really one of the funniest musicals ever done, and delicious. And with, the icon, my icon, which was Gene Kelly. So even though I only have a few scenes in it, I think I was 17.
Yeah.
But my grandchildren love it, and they are now 14 and 12, so it's not like they're babies. It's a great movie.
It is. And it's one of the favorites in our household, too, and I can't wait a little bit later this year, because I know this has been done in a few other places. The Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra is going to do a live soundtrack while the film plays at the theater downtown here, so I really can't wait to see that.
West Side Story?
No, of Singin' in the Rain.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How exciting.
Cannot wait for that. But, I mean, you go back even before Singin' in the Rain. You started, as I understand it, you started dancing when you were very young, right?
I was 5 years old, and I used to dance for Grandpa in Puerto Rico. And then when I came to this country, a friend of my mother's who happened to be a Spanish dancer saw me bopping around the apartment, and she said to my mom, I think Rosita has, some talent. And she asked my mother if she could take me to her dance teacher who was a Spanish dance teacher. And that's where it all started. And I was 5, yeah.
Was your dance teacher, I read that your teacher was the uncle of Rita Hayworth. Was that true?
Yes, his name was Paco Cancino, and Rita Hayworth was really Margarita Cancino. He was her uncle, and he was a very well-known Spanish dance teacher. And, as far as I was concerned at that time, he was Spanish royalty. But yes, he was.
Yeah, the Cancinos, very well known in dance. I remember Fred Astaire reading something that he wrote about his relationship with the Cancinos long before either you or Ms. Hayworth came around, way back when.
Fred Astaire? You mean Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly?
I believe it was Fred Astaire, because it was Fred was writing. I believe it was the autobiography that he published way back when, and he talked about meeting Rita Hayworth for the first time. Before they did films together, and he said something about knowing, I believe it was her father that he knew well from way back when.
Ah, right. Yes, well, they were quite famous in a certain circle. They were the dancing Cancinos.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, they were very well known, not amongst American folk, but among all the Hispanic people knew who these people were. They had a great reputation.
Rita Moreno is with us. She is going to be in Carmel at the Palladium. The Center for Performing Arts is holding the Feinstein Great American Songbook Initiative Hall of Fame Gala this weekend. Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli also being honored along with Jimmy Webb. It's going to be a great time, and Ms. Moreno is going to be here for the proceedings. Of course, everybody knows you from West Side Story. Tell us, if we haven't heard the story already, or for some who haven't heard the story already, how did West Side Story happen for you?
It happened because of my association with Jerome Robbins, the choreographer, the genius choreographer. I met him on the set of The King and I, the film. And after we were done doing that film, he said, I'm going to be doing a production in New York called West Side Story, and I think you'd be a wonderful lead in it, Maria. Not Anita, Maria. And he said, would you come to audition and to New York? And I said, oh, sure. And when the time came, I absolutely got cold feet. I got scared to death. I hadn't done a play in many years. So I skipped that audition. But when the film came to be done, he suggested to his co-director, Robert Weiss, that I audition for Anita. And that's what happened, and that was the connection. And I got the part. And, boy, I was one happy Puerto Rican.
Imagine so. Won an Oscar for that role, too.
I won an Oscar and a Golden Globe.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was interesting because you didn't make a whole lot of movies in the years after West Side Story.
I didn't make a movie. After I won the Oscar, I didn't make a film for 7 years. Show business is a very strange animal.
What was going on there? Why was that?
I was offered only more gang movies of a much lesser quality. And I refused. I just thought, well, I've got my little gold man now under my arm. I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. And I showed them. I didn't do a film for 7 years.
So Hollywood just wanted to pigeonhole you into a certain type of role, typecast you?
And I was done with that. At that point, I thought, no, I'm not going to humiliate myself anymore with those really lesser and demeaning roles. So I wasn't humiliated, but I also didn't work.
So what happened to bring you back into the fold?
A lot of that stuff is in my book. And actually, if I may, the interesting part of my book, one of the interesting parts of my book is that I talk and write about a Hollywood that really no longer exists, where the star system was a very big thing and where there was a lot of prejudice in terms of race. And so I was stuck with playing all these Conchita Lolita parts because they could only see me in one way. So it's a very interesting part of my life because it was a very different Hollywood then.
And the book is called Rita Moreno, a Memoir, New York Times bestseller. Please do check that out if you haven't already.
Mostly because a lot of people want to hear about or read about my relationship with Marlon Brando and Elvis Presley.
Now, I knew some about the relationship with Marlon Brando. I did not know about Elvis, though.
Well, you got to read the book.
Got to read the book to find out. I will do that.
Get yourself that book.
Oh, see, my mom was a huge Elvis. We still have the newspaper clipping of the day Elvis died, saved in a giant book somewhere at
Oh my
parents'
goodness.
house.
Really?
She was nuts about Elvis Presley. So,
Yes.
Rita Moreno is with us. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my wife's favorite Rita Moreno association was when you came back to television, or when you started really in television. Well, you probably did some TV before that, but in 1972, you got a little children's show called The Electric Company that came along on PBS.
Oh, not so little either. That was
Not so little, that's true.
It was a huge success. It was a big experiment on the part of the Children's Television Workshop, which had already had a very successful run with Sesame Street. And after Sesame Street, not that that's still with us, Sesame Street. After that, they decided they wanted to try a show for slightly older children to teach them to read. And it was really hugely experimental, very bold, very courageous on the part of Children's Television Network. And the Electric Company became an enormous hit. And let's not forget for a moment that some of the actors in it were quite astonishing.
Oh, everybody was in the Electric Company.
As a regular, and Morgan Freeman was in it as a regular.
Mm-hmm.
I was a regular, and then the one that people always forget is because she was so young was the singer. Oh my God, this is what happens when you're 81.
Irene Cara was in it, wasn't she?
Irene Cara, yes. Yep.
It
was quite an amazing cast of very talented actors helping to teach people to read. It was really an extremely clever, brilliantly conceived show to help children to read, and it did. It really had an enormous success.
Now, you are one of the very few people anywhere of any, and you might be the only person of Hispanic origin to do this, I believe. This would be sort of the grand slam of entertainment. You've won an Oscar, you've won an Emmy, you've won a Tony, and a Grammy. Is that correct?
Yeah, and at this point I now have 2 Grammys, and I won 2 Emmys, one for the Electric Company and one for the Muppet Show.
That's right. The Muppet Show did win an Emmy. I forgot about that. So, just a fabulous career, and still, what are you doing these days? How are you keeping it going?
I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I'm 81, going strong. And I'm working on a one-woman show. Actually, I've done it already. I just want to take it to New York, if I can, and to other theaters. It's called Life Without Makeup. Actually, it's what inspired the book, me to do the book. Mm-hmm. And that had enormous success here at the Berkeley Repertory Theater. So we'd like to take it on the road and possibly end up in New York with it. But, I'm 81, and I don't want to miss out being with my family. That's my big dilemma at this age, is that anything that might be very successful like that, and it might very well, because it had huge success here in California, might take me away from my family, my grandsons, and I don't know that I want to do that for any length of time.
Don't blame me for that, but we're certainly glad to have you here this weekend for the gala.
I'm delighted. I can't wait.
The Great American Songbook Hall of Fame Gala performance featuring yourself, Rita Moreno. Liza Minnelli will be here, Frank Sinatra, Jimmy Webb also being honored, and we'll have all the info at WIBC.com to get your tickets to see this extraordinary gala and the wonderful work that Michael Feinstein's doing there.
Whomever comes who happens to have my book, if you come to see the gala, please bring the book and I'll sign it personally for you.
Excellent. We'll pass that along. Rita Moreno, it has been an extreme pleasure, and this is one of those career highlights that you look back on fondly.
Oh, and, I can't wait. It's really going to be very exciting. Thank you so much for your interest and your concern and for calling me.